Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
Hey everybody, Scott Cowan here again, your host at the Exploring Washington State podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. Today's episode is a conversation I had recently with Stephanie Ann Johnson. Wow. Power, energy, enthusiasm, spirit. These things come shining through in this conversation. I am very lucky that I got to have this time and interview with Stephanie Ann Johnson. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to ask you to listen. You're going to love it. Leave some feedback, subscribe, enjoy, and we'll see you soon. So Stephanie Ann Johnson, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you making the time to be here today. Thanks for being here.
Most definitely. It's good to be here talking to you. It's good to talk to anybody, really.
I would love it if you would take a few minutes and kind of tell us, well, what I'm going to say what I know about you, and then I'm going to ask you to fill in the many holes that are in my knowledge bank of you. You appeared on The Voice. I'd love to hear what that journey was like to go there. You also sang on a cruise ship, and you grew up in Tacoma. How did music get into your life? How did it, because it seems very obvious to me that it's a huge part of you.
Yeah, music got into my life a couple of ways, which is I'm very, very grateful for. Number one, my family really encouraged my musical interest. And number two, I was going to public schools, and I started when I was in the 8th grade. I started taking a voice lesson from the music teacher, Miss Gandulia. Oh yeah, and she was the white teacher at the time, majority Black, Jason Lee. And she would stand up in front of us and say, "Look, I may be white and I may be ugly, but I'm here to teach you about this music. We're going to get into it. Measure 36. It was very cool.
That's awesome.
She was a nonsense type of human, and I loved being in her class. Then in high school, I started studying classical voice with the teacher, then Mr. Trumbanus. And so he was the one that told me I should go look for Carmen. And so I went to the public library, the main library in downtown Tacoma, with my Discman, and I found a recording of Carmen. I don't remember which orchestra or opera house, but I do remember sitting on the floor and putting that CD into my Discman and trying to understand, right? Like, I feel like I was doing the same thing with some rock and roll, on 2 years later, I would do the same thing with The Color and the Shape by Dave Grohl. The Foo Fighters. I would put that disc in my Discman and try to understand what is happening. This is an explosion of sound. What is happening? What do I like about all of this? And then also when I turned 14, I got my very first guitar. Before that, 2 years before that, I was in a production of, because musical theater was also a part of my life. I was in a production of, The Sound of Music. And very weirdly, I played Maria. Very weirdly. I think it was because I was tall. And I had a prop that was a classical guitar. And I remember backstage looking at it thinking this is a majestic thing. How do I make this thing talk to me? Right. So yeah, 2 years later, I got my very first guitar because I begged my mom for a year. My mom was like, "Look, we got this piano, we got this flute, we got these tap shoes in this house. This is your last thing, okay?" And it's the one that I have stuck with, that I've gone back to. So there was a lot of that kind of music. Then I went to PLU, studied voice. One of the folks that I sang with in the choir at PLU had put together a quartet. A barbershop quartet, and was working on cruise ships. So they said, Stephanie, the dude playing guitar on our ship, he's no better than you. Come on, we got to get you this job. So they made a recording of me playing guitar, sitting on the floor in their apartment in Tacoma, right across from Wrights Park. And
In the the red brick building?
Uh-huh. Yes.
I used to live in that building.
Yep.
That's where my kids lived. They went to stadium. We lived there.
Yeah.
It's a cool building.
It's a great building. The high ceilings and the arches, very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, made a video in that building, and that's how I got on the cruise ships. And then the cruise ships, I was playing in the lounge. This guitar player, Chris Vasquez, he had a friend who was in The Voice, who had done The Voice. And he said, well, I mean, like, let's get you on. He took a video of me playing in the lounge, sent it to his connections. I got an email a couple of weeks later being like, okay, well, did you want to come to New York or Los Angeles or Atlanta to do this audition? And I was like, well, LA's closest. Let's go. So then I went and auditioned for The Voice. I need you to know that there was like maybe a 3-week turnaround from the time that I got off a cruise ship that I went to my first voice audition. I didn't give myself any time to rebound or recoil or recenter or rest or anything. I just picked myself up and went running at the next challenge. And that's not the way, people. That's not the way.
I don't know. See, I think, okay, first off, I have no musical talent, zero. But I think if I didn't do it that way, I'd get in my head and I'd find a way of backing out if I gave myself some runway. I think I'd have done it that way too. Just like go, run towards it, not think about it. That'd be for me.
Well, I feel you, but there's a line in one of the songs from my band's record. It's called "Take This Love," and the song is "Making love ain't the same as it used to be." And in the second verse, I say, "When you're rolling around, you don't quite notice where you stand." And when you're rolling around and running around the world like that, without paying any credence to looking at yourself and saying, well, who am I? Where do I stand? What do I want? What makes me feel good? Not knowing where you stand means not having all that right information. Not having all the right information means you can't make all the right decisions. So it's important to stay in touch with self. Oh, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good points. So, okay. So you get off the cruise ship. Mm-hmm. 3 weeks later, you're doing your
The Voice
audition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? What's it like being on a show like that on TV? I mean, for those of us that have never been on a show like that, I'm going to guess it's glamorous 100% of the time. No, I'm just kidding. I bet it's a lot of hard work. And I mean, what was some of the takeaways you got from performing on The Voice?
Here is the distinct difference that I have found between doing theater and doing television. In theater, they tell you, boo, this wall is fake. You're going to hit it at this time and it's going to fall. And it's queued up to this lighting. So you have to be standing here to hit this wall, to hit this lighting, to hit these words. Here's the script. Here's your lines. They tell you, right? It's prepared. For TV, everything's fake and no one tells you. So it's really all about making sure that you are secure in yourself and who you are. But I didn't know that. So it was a mess for me. It was very hard. The floor lights up, the chairs turn. There's one of the things that made me calm though, going into we were on I can't remember which lot we were on in Studio City. But it was very cool to go inside this huge building with these like huge air conditioners that are, the size of 3 people standing on each other's shoulders and such. Just huge, everything huge, crazy, lots of curtains and such. And I looked up at the ceiling, and the ceiling was like a grid, right? Mm-hmm. Like a wooden grid. And I'm like, oh, I'm just in a really big theater. I mean, a soundstage really is a really big theater, right?
Okay.
So it's a different kind of acting. Acting for camera versus acting for an audience. And with the voice, they try to blend it so that there are people there. Is an audience there. But really, you look into that camera and there's 15 million people in there, man. 15 million people. That's wild. It's mind boggling. I can't fathom 15 million people. I really can't. I don't know what that looks like.
I've got no clue.
It is a mass of humanity. God bless it, for better or for worse.
That's more than every single person in New York City. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, that's crazy.
Yes,
okay. That's crazy.
The long and the short of it is, the voice for me was wild. It was a wild time. And I don't recommend it for artists. I really think that one of the beautiful things that I have found outside the voice, really immersing myself in some musical communities, is, we've got to work together. We've got to collaborate. We've got to do songwriting sessions together. There's things that we can learn from each other if we're willing to both have our own light on to shine for the world and be aware of the ambient light of others.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So after The Voice, did you come back to Tacoma?
Back to Tacoma immediately.
And what were you doing then?
I was not prepared for what fame was going to be like.
Okay.
Because I came back to Tacoma and everyone that had ever known me at any time in my life was aware of me and wanted to talk to me. And I got stopped at the bank, and I got stopped at the grocery store, and I got stopped pumping gas, and I got stopped in the mall. And I wasn't prepared for how to deal with other people's feelings about me, how to deal with other people wanting to tell me all the time how proud they are of me and what I do. Loving is really not for the faint of heart. So I wasn't prepared to receive the amount of love that Tacoma had for me. And it really has been a learning curve for me to fully take in and receive the love that others have for what it is that I do. I started doing some music with some Seattle cats, a guy named Robin Moxie and I. We started doing some music together. We put together a band. That band came apart. I started doing some more musical theater. I worked with, it's now called Arts Live in Tacoma, but got to do a production of Ain't Misbehavin', which was really great. Then I went down to Oregon and was worked with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I was in their, the first all black show that they did in the outside Elizabethan stage was The Wiz. And I was one of the pit singers for that. I was also in The Mayor's Tale. That ended. I came back to Washington State from Oregon. And this is the genesis of the Hidogs. Jesse Turcotte, bass player, songwriter, arranger. His company is Emergency Bandcast System, and they do all of my audio visual, all of my streaming and such. And he started sending me messages in October when I was set to come back in November. He started sending me messages saying, "Oh, you come back to Tacoma? Let's do this music. Let's get together." And really, it just started a really beautiful, like, artistic friendship that became the Hidogs. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's talk about the Hidogs. How, for somebody who hasn't heard them, how would you describe them? And because of this weird time that we're all living in, what are you guys doing now?
Okay, so the Hidogs, Hidogs, we want you to feel elevated. We want to bring you up. We want to make you feel good. We want to release all those incredible feelings, the good feelings that you have inside your body. We want to release those, get those out into the air. So the music that we play, there's a little bit of rock, there's a little bit of country, there's a little bit of folk, there's a little bit of soul. And to me, it all is Americana. It sounds like us when we get together. I personally believe that the best thing about American music is the swirl, is the ability of white folks and Black folks to get together and share musical ideas. Every artist on that song Respect by Aretha Franklin, besides her, is white. That's Muscle Shoals. The Swampers are behind her on that track. And if you listen to the track without the vocal, it just sounds like some country pickers, doesn't it? So doesn't it stand to reason that if I could put the soul of my voice next to somebody's slide guitar, next to somebody's pedal steel, I mean, we're still making soul music, right? Because the vocal is out front, but there's some country on it and there's some rock and roll on it. Because me personally, I like that. I need that the edge of rock and roll, the edge of country, man. I like a little cutesiness. Good Lord, I love a sad song. So, I love that Dolly Parton.
I love it. What's funny is you bring up Aretha Franklin and Respect, and I had never thought of it like that. And it's so obvious when you say it. It's kind of, I'm embarrassed to be saying what I'm saying. But it's so obvious, but I had never connected those dots.
That's why.
So thank you.
You're very, very welcome. I really feel like music appreciation is a part of anti-racist teaching. If we start talking about the artists in America that have received the presidential honors, that have played the Kennedy Center, that have, spent 20 years, 30 years, 40 years touring, making music. These are our modern icons. And in 2020, early in 2020, before the shutdown, with this wonderful friend of mine, Dan Tyak on pedal steel, we were able to open for Mavis Staples. And let me tell you, being in side stage, like being able to watch her work from side stage, it's incredible. It's beautiful to go ahead and watch a master at work, to go ahead and watch somebody, who supposedly, oh gosh, what's his name? Come to my mind. He's a folk singer #1, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan proposed to that woman and she said no. My goodness. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the the lore, the musical lore. Also that gives me hope. Mavis Staples being Black and femme and never married and doesn't have any children. And it's like, okay, so I could live my whole life musically and not do those things and still be okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I don't hear that message enough.
So let me ask you something. Let me go back. I would like to ask you something. So you were on the side stage watching this legend perform, and I think she's in her 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So she's still performing in her 80s, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But what was a takeaway that you got from watching her? You called her a master. What can you tell us one thing that you observed that was like, wow, that's so powerful?
She talked to the audience like those people mattered.
Okay.
She talked to the audience like those people mattered. They came out, they paid their money. They didn't have to. I had my current boss, this woman named Carol Handley. She's my boss over at KNKX for the radio show.
Okay.
She said to me, this was years ago, I was being flip about talking to the audience. And she said, people come out and they pay $20 for ticket. Okay. So they paid $20 for a ticket. Then, they got a babysitter for their kids. So that's another what? $120, something like that. Came out here, paid parking. That's another $20. Came out here and paid for drinks and dinner. That's another $150. They did all that just to come see you. I want you to think about that. And knowing that people who go ahead and make $11 an hour doing whatever job they do still find it in their heart to buy my CD that my band and I made for $10, for $20. That's hours of their life that they're willing to give me. And I could never express my gratitude enough. So yeah, talking to the audience like those people matter. Yes.
That's a great story. That's a great lesson. So let's keep going on the Hidogs. So you and Jesse met, and then how did the band evolve to where it's at now?
That's a very interesting story, which is great. So me and Jesse met and started putting the band together. We welcomed in Jordani Surreal to play some keys for us on a couple of the tunes. We had Dan Tyak to come in and play pedal steel and sometimes dobro on some of the tunes. And then we had Ivan Gunderson to come in and play drums. Very talented drummer, very talented young man. So we lost Jordani, I think it was like 2019. She went on to do her own stuff. She's got a great band, Jordani and the Sun Kings, wonderful group. And it became just the four of us, myself, Jesse, Dan Tyak, Ivan Gunderson. So the shutdown happens and Ivan decided to split because he really just wanted to be with his girlfriend and have his job and, play in bands that were maybe not as serious as ours. Because, we're going places, we're doing things. We're not going to be a bar band for absolutely ever. That's not the plan. So we lost Ivan, and then we gained a young man named Arturo Ortega. I always get afraid that I'm going to forget his name. But he's a really great drummer, worked with Jenny Lewis for a couple of years. And we saw him 2 years ago at this point. He was playing with Brett Benton, opening for us at, great place in Olympia to play. And I know the owner too, the Rhythm and Rye. That's the name of the place in Olympia.
Rhythm and Rye, yeah,
the R&R, yeah. And I've developed a sense for, looking at the audience and also looking at like various people in the music industry. And I can look out sometimes and see that people want to be in business with me in some way. And that young man, Arturo, he looked at me just like that from the audience. I remember looking at his face and he was like, I could see on his face that he wanted to be a part of it. So when Ivan left, he joined our group, which was great. Then the summer of 2020, the summer of the great shaking of Black Lives Matter protests on every corner, in thousands of protests across the United States and globally. All of that was happening. Dan Tyak, our 66-year-old pedal steel player, found himself a beautiful young lady who lives in California and decided, okay, well, I'm getting married and I will see you guys later. So he met this gal. I met her once too. She came with us to a gig out on Vashon. Liga is her name. Very nice lady. So yeah, he left the group and then there were three. So right now the lineup of the band is myself and Jesse and Arturo. And when Dan left us, he wrote us a very long, very passionate, very heartfelt letter talking about leaving the group. And he really did predict that the places, this band is going, we're going crazy places. And he, doesn't want to impede that in any way. And I love that. That's a great gift to give as you're parting, to let somebody know, hey, I think you're going places I can't go, but God bless you on the journey. Right. That's a wonderful way to leave a room. So now I'm back to playing a little more electric guitar. I'm playing now because Take This Love is all I'm playing acoustic guitar on that. I'm playing a Taylor. I have since bought myself a like a $2,000 Breed Love, because this is my job. I deserve fancy tools. I had to talk myself into it, but I did it. So yeah, I'm back to playing a little more electric guitar and just growing what my hands can do. Growing more what they feel comfortable doing. We are still working with a whole bunch of different guitar players to try and see who would be next to be in the solo chair for the Hidogs. We're still working on it. Check out live concert stream coming up here over the next couple of months, over February and March and April. We're going to be doing some duo sets with them, with some of Seattle's absolute best guitar players. Kathy Moore is going to come through. We got R.L. Heyer, who's going to come through. Jeff Fielder is going to come through. Out of Tacoma, we're going to have Rod Cook come through. Wonderful player. New cat, a 23-year-old guitar player, very talented cat named Anand Landon is going to come through. We work together a little bit. He is an incredible guitar player, so he gives me a little lesson about guitaring. We talk about music. We do some duo stuff. I give him a little talk about vocalizing. A lot of folks are afraid to sing, man. And I got to tell you, breathe deeply, find some peace in your heart, and you got to let it out. Singing is good for us. Silence is also good, but it is a learned behavior. We are born with our bodies reacting to the shock of air hitting our lungs. We are born crying out. And so I really just challenge you all, wherever you are. Oh, please sing in your car, sing in the shower, sing with your kids, sing with your elders. It's good for us. It's important. Our songs are important.
All right. Wow.
Thank you for letting me preach. I appreciate you.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. So there's so much that I got to ask now. So first off, we're going to put a pin in it, but we're going to talk about KNKX. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that.
Yes.
You are releasing a new video. Well, by the time that this is for the public, the video will be released. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about it?
Okay. So the song is called Gosh OG. And I love the way that this song has evolved, because I was writing the song with the Hidogs. We were together at a rehearsal, pardon me, in Jesse Turcotte's house over there in Fircrest, for folks that know. He used to live out there in Fircrest. And I was thinking about, a song about a person walking along somewhere with their dog, just walking through life. What is that like? And sure, there may have been a young man involved at the time, but whatever. But this idea, the beautiful vulnerability of saying to someone, even your dog, hey, come on, walk a little ways with me. I don't like to be alone. I think that's sweet. I think that's cutesy, but I think that the way that we do it, there's balance between the sweet and the cutesy. So the video is starring Wheezy, who is Jesse Turcotte's dog and kind of his avatar. God bless it. And we are down there, in that like Titlow area.
Okay. So online, there's this like YouTube. It says premiere, and there's the thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that looks like the train area of Titlow Beach.
Yep, it's the train area of Titlow Beach, and walking along down there with his dog. Jesse Turcotte filmed it with a gimbal on a Google Pixel. We did this on a cell phone. And part of the reason to do it that way, I feel, is that, not every shoe in my closet is a fancy shoe. Some of them working boots, some of them hiking boots, but it's a nice collection, right? So not every video, necessarily needs to be blockbuster, because sometimes you just have to tell the story, right? We had it edited by this wonderful bass player, and he does the videos for his band. They're called Fruition, and they're charting, and they're absolutely fabulous. And we love having those folks in our musical family. Jeff Leonard is the name of that fella. He cut all the scenes together for us and synced it to the music. So in the video, really just walking along with a dog, thinking about life. And I really feel like, folks love dogs. Across racial divides, people love animals. They love their pets. Mm-hmm. They love their dogs. Like to dress them up in little costumes or whatever else. Get them little treats and Christmas presents and birthday bones and all the stuff. Because it's fun to be excited about someone who is simple in that way, who can be happy if you scratch their belly and throw them a treat. Because
it's unconditional.
Yeah,
it's unconditional.
That's right. And human beings, you can't scratch everybody's belly. It's not like that.
No, we're fairly conditional.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So yeah, we had a really fun day of filming. I wore my happy green boots that I got from eBay. I got them from. I love the secondhand clothes, man. Secondhand clothes are really the way to go. So yeah, it was great walking along on one of my favorite places, climbing up on the train a little bit. You can see the narrowest bridges there in the background. And I wanted us as a band, when we put out videos, I really wanted us to look like ourselves.
Okay.
Cause I'm not fancy, and I'm not putting on airs for you, that's also the country edge. The thing about country music is you need 3 chords and the truth. And I try to bring that to my music.
Okay. I'm looking forward to watching that video tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, is that part of an upcoming album? Is it just a standalone piece? What's the plan?
So what happened in 2018, the Hidogs and I, when it was Jesse, myself, Dan Tyak, and Ivan Gunderson, we went into Litho Studios there in Seattle. That's owned by Stone Gossard from the Pearl Jam, and the gold record from Soundgarden is on the wall, and it's just oh my God, I love the building, and we had Floyd Wrightsma engineering, and if you ask me, he also helped us arrange that record. We used a lot of his feedback, really. But in that session in 2 days, we got 23 songs cut.
Why only 23?
You were the first person to say that. Because everybody else is like, why? There's so many.
That's a lot. That's a lot of songs.
So part of the reason we did so many is so that we would have the ability to just look through and say, okay, well, what do we want to put out? What do we want to put on this first record? So we put on Take This Love. That came out. Then that was 2019. I think it was the summer before that, Ashland by Morning came out, which was, I think 5 or 6 tracks of just Dan and I together. And I think you can get that on. It's not on the Spotify, but I believe it is on the Bandcamp.
Okay.
And then, with Dan leaving the band, Dan's on all those tracks, because he was with us for that recording day. So we really just had to blow out the rest of these tracks so that we can get into the studio and make new things. Because there's all kinds of new songs. Just to toot my own horn for just a little second, toot. I'm somewhat prolific, and I write a fair amount.
Okay.
So there are so many songs to sift through, because oftentimes I write the song, I record it on my phone, and then I forget about it and leave it for months and months. And when I'm feeling bad about myself, I go back and look through what past me has put out. And, either I tweak it and say, oh, this is good now. I did that the other day with this new song called Catch a Fire. But like sometimes I have to let songs marinate and leave them alone. I also think it's very important to have that like list of prior pieces and inventions to go back and sort through. Because as a songwriter, I don't only need my ability to write, I need my ability to edit, and I need my ability to figure out, well, does this taste good or not? Because if it doesn't taste good, let's leave it alone. But if it tastes good, oh, well, let's write it and see what's in there, So yeah, it's being self-critical in a constructive way. So that's why we're putting out all these singles. Now, hopefully in the future, I'm going to cross my fingers about it. And I'm putting this out into the universe because I have high hopes for myself and this band. Hopefully what we would really like to do, maybe in the next 2 years, is do a double vinyl release of all the Litho sessions. So that folks could hear all those songs all together. Because that was an incredible time in my life, an incredible journey. I remember the shirt that I wore and the hat that I wore to be in the studio on both of those days. And I remember just feeling so on fire in the best possible way. So yeah, I absolutely love all that music. And I can't wait for y'all to hear all these songs. Because to me, they're like kind of like my children. They're going to live on in the world after I'm gone, Lord willing. And also they're from me, but they're not me. So how they exist in the world, is up to me, but like only for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So are you working? You mentioned maybe going into the studio. Is that kind of on the horizon?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes, it's on the horizon. But we are, like I said, we're working with a whole bunch of guitar players to see who might be interested in the chair. But we're also refining the tunes. We're refining our new sound, because how we sound now is not how we sounded before. Right.
Okay.
So this is about evolution. This is about timing. This is about finding the right people to work on the record. Yeah, it's very interesting. In the past, I think it was around the start of the quarantine, the band and I received a grant from Black Frat. They're a group that are usually out of Austin, but they're also in Seattle, and they give money to working musicians, not unlike myself. So hoping to use some of that grant money and some of the funds that we make selling merch and t-shirts and such to get into the studio. Me, I don't mind investing my money in my band because I love them. I love them. I love them wildly. I love them so much. I realize that, and this is another of the songs, 3 Chords and the Truth. The song is called Apology. And in the third verse, I say, the best gift I can give to you is a version of me that ain't so black and blue. So I love this band enough to take care of myself, to take better care of myself than I ever have, because I want to be around to do this music with them.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we always try to ask our guests, especially on the music episodes, I'll ask you the first one. Now we're going to keep it to Washington State. I'm going to give you this question two different ways. Though. I'm going to the first one's going to be Washington State.
Okay.
So in all your years of performing, where was the coolest venue you performed at? And it could be in theater. You could tell me when you were at Jason Lee, the auditorium. I don't care. It's what is the coolest venue you've ever performed at in Washington State?
I got to give it to the Tractor Tavern. I love the Tractor Tavern.
I love the Tractor Tavern.
The Tractor Tavern.
I love the Tractor Tavern.
The Tractor Tavern. I love that place. I remember seeing shows there when I was a younger person. And then I remember one of the first times I played there was with, this Irish blues player named JP and that Whitney Manger, another one of Seattle's favorites. And I just remember, walking up and down that street and seeing that poster, that had my name on it for playing the Tractor Tavern. And I
love it.
I love the Tractor. That is my room. I love that place. February, I want to believe that it was the 8th, it might have been, of 2020. The band and I were opening for, might have been October though. I really have a bad grasp of time. But anyway, we were opening for Black Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears. And we had played our whole set and it was great. And we had the whole audience with us and it was great. And the way that the set ended, the music was coming to a close. And I said, thank you, Seattle. Good night. And then the last chord hit and it's like, who am I? Like, this is my life. This is my dope ass life right now. Like, oh my God. The Tractor Tavern, man. It's wonderful people.
Yeah, I've seen some great acts at the Tractor Tavern.
Oh yeah.
I can't. That is the place I'm looking forward to going back to as soon as possible.
Oh yes.
All right. So part 2 of the question: where's the coolest place you've ever played anywhere?
That's a really wonderful question because I personally believe, and I think this is why I'm continue to be successful with the streaming. No matter who's in the audience, and this is another thing that I learned on the cruise ship, no matter who's in the audience, if it's one little sweet old lady or 35 people or 1,000 people, they need to get the show and they need to feel the show. And the show for 1,000 people, when I bring that show to just one person, it needs to hit the same. Right.
Okay.
So I have a hard time saying, my favorite place I've ever performed because because every place I've ever performed is a church. Every place I've ever performed is holy to me, at least.
Okay.
I felt the spirit.
All right.
Yeah. I guess.
So how about
if I had to say though, one of my favorite performances I've ever given was the time that I got to sing The Wait with Aretha Franklin's version of The Wait, the year she died, with the musicians from the Seattle tribute to The Last Waltz. And I didn't learn about The Last Waltz until I met these musicians. And suddenly here was a whole new world of music for me to explore and love, and a whole new world of musicians for me to connect with and love. And I was so worried, before this performance, because they had asked me, I think at the end of September, would you sing Aretha Franklin's version of The Wait? And I listened to the song and then I said yes. And then I was like driving to Canada to do some show. And it was a 3-4 hour drive. And I put that song on repeat I think I took my mom's car too, but I put that song on repeat, and I learned her vocal as best I could. And it was hard. I had to build into my voice the ability to, do my best impression of me paying homage to Aretha. And at that performance, it could be because I didn't eat a great deal beforehand. It could be because I had smoked a little bit of weed and there was some whiskey in my body at the time. It could be. But during that performance, I started singing that song and I blacked out. I don't remember that performance. But when it was over, I looked out into the space above people's heads in the lights, and I could see the atoms splitting. It was a wonderful, I had arrived at heaven and couldn't remember the car ride there. And then the write-up that I got said exactly that. It said, the person had been in the audience and said they could see the atoms splitting.
Wow.
And so I was like, what that moment taught me is that we can all collectively have similar experiences at the same event. We can all feel those shivers all at once. And there's immense power. And for me, immense spirituality in that. One of the philosophies I think about as a musician is when I sing, I'm in touch with the divine, right? Or for folks that aren't spiritual, my faith in myself, right? So I have that connection. Then I'm connected to the musicians around me, right? I'm in conversation and connection with them. And then I'm also in connection and conversation with the canon, with all the people before me that do this job. At least I like to think about it that way. And then lastly, but not leastly, I'm in connection with this audience and who they are and what they want. And the fact that they're willing to sit and stop what they're doing and focus on me for a minute in a world where everybody's on their phone, everybody's doing a million things, everybody's going a million places, everybody's wearing 18 hats because of economic injustice. And yet people are willing to celebrate me and the music I love to make with people I love to make it with. It's unbelievably humbling. Unbelievably.
Wow. So I'm going to bounce that back to you because I would like to hear your take on this. So you just recently performed at the Seasons Performance Hall in Yakima.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You did a live stream. You didn't have the audience.
Correct.
So as a performer, how different is that for you? What works? I'm going to guess that not everything works in that environment now. What works? Because I think musicians are trying to find ways to play, trying to find ways to perform, trying to ways to make a living doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that connection between performer and audience is currently severed. It just was a couple of nights ago, basically, wasn't it? Was it
last Thursday?
You performed. So this is okay. So less than a week ago at the time of this recording. Can you share with us what that event was like for you as a performer?
Okay, so the day before, and we talked about this in the car because Jesse Turcotte and I, we drove up to North Bend and then joined Arturo and went over to Yakima together. And I'm very blessed that the boys were very on top of both planning the travel and executing the travel. I never drove. God bless it. I love to drive, but I didn't drive. And also a lot of the heavy lifting of the gear, they were really willing to help with that. So I didn't have to lift too many heavy things too many times, which is great. All three of us in the car, we were so excited. All of us were geeked. Nobody slept the night before. We were just like, oh, we're going on a road trip to a gig. We're actually, so number one, we were already geeked. We were already ready. We were already just very excited to go do this. Number two, arriving at the venue, the crew was there. There was a group of people doing the recording. There was a group of people doing the sound. So there were, including us, like less than 10 people in the building. And
right.
Everybody was still sweet to us. Sound check lasted a good long time. We were able to jam a little bit, with all of our big gear, because singing in a room like the room I'm in right now, I mean, this is a room in my house. I want to be considerate. I don't want to hulk anybody out with, my loud screaming. Yes. So being in a hall where this is expected and I get to make the big noise, like, it's just so exciting. So number one, it's exciting. Number two, it's exciting. Number three, this is the faith part, right? This is the faith part. I have faith that people listen. I have faith that people tune in. I have faith that people watch it. It's a, field of dreams type of a situation. If you build it, they will come. So I'm trying to build in myself a musician that other musicians will want to work with and follow and respect. Building that person is important to me, and it has been lucrative. Hallelujah. The second thing to build is the camaraderie and the trust with your bandmates. So, what is it? I promise not to be funny with money. I promise to, to rehearse before rehearsal. I promise to, get out on stage and do what we did in rehearsal and not throw too many curveballs at y'all. I love a curveball, but the boys I'm working with right now, not so geeked about curveballs. And I understand that.
Okay.
And so we work with that. It's a flexible thing. So yeah. Number one, I'm excited. Number two, I'm excited. Number three, I have faith. So yeah.
So how was it? I mean, the whole aspect of it, did it go flawlessly, or was it what's it like?
It was radical. It was radical. I had such a good time. 10 out of 10 would recommend. 10 out of 10 would play again. Everybody was sweet. We got fed. We got paid on time. The tips were really good. Big shout out to Cody Beebe, because his company Chinook Fest does sponsor some of that. I love that Cody Beebe. Met him a couple of years ago, actually through a voice connection, because his band, The Crooks, sometimes back up Austin Jenks when he comes through. And Austin Jenks was on my season of The Voice, and he's a Nashville human, but he's from Duval. So when we perform together, we are Washington's finest. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned your quote unquote job, and you are now working at the radio station.
Yes. My radio job is through KNKX, and Carol Handley is my boss, the same lady who, gave me that wonderful talk about what people pay for music, and what it really costs. I remember saying to her at that time that I wanted to be on the radio, right? Because I wanted everything. I want to be on the radio. I want to have a TV show. I want to play music with my band and travel everywhere. You know, I'm in my 20s, like, yeah. And I want to, you know, like saying everything with no filter. And, you know, 7-8 years later, this lady, you know, sends me a email or a text message or something and says, hey, do you want to be on the radio? You want to work on this new radio show with me? And so we put in she put in maybe 6 months of helping to train me up about what it is to be a radio broadcaster, so how fortified I have to be as a human, the research involved, right? And then how she calls it cumulative impression, right? So people's impression of me over time, right? So if I am pleasant and I tell a joke every now and again and it's funny and fun, people think it's funny and fun. If I'm forcing the joke every time, right? It's less fun for people. And if I'm going to stop the music, right? If I'm going to stop the music, I want to say something important, right? So the show is called The Groove Yard. It's Saturdays from 1 to 4 on KNKX, formerly KPLU, my alma mater, PLU. But yeah, it's a new world for me. It's new connections. We were able to do this past Monday, Monday the 1st, I should say. We got John Kessler to come on, and we did a hybrid of playing some blues covers and some originals, and then just talking about blues in the breaks. So we did like sets of 3 tunes and then a little talk, a little conversation. And it really, it went over well. We made really good tips that night. So yeah, just trying to broaden what I do and grow so that people that have been watching me play music since I'm in high school, right, can feel like, okay, well, I knew them in high school. We were in choir together, and then they did the cruise ships, and then they did a voice, and then they did this musical theater, and now they're on the radio. Oh, you know, so I got a message like that the other day from a friend of mine who's a teacher. His name is Don Neptune. And he sent me a message on the Facebook to say, hey, I'm listening to you on the radio right now. I'm just very proud of you. And just being able to receive that love, you know, from someone from 15 years ago, like that's wild. And I appreciate that. I surely do. So if I can, please. A little bit about the show itself. It's called The Groove Yard. It's soul jazz, it's blues, it's grooves. There's trip hop elements. It's really interesting. It's a really wonderful little soup of music that I'm really loving. And it's also a bunch of artists that I haven't spent as much time with as I should have. You know, your Wayne Shorter and the RH Factor. Ooh, great group. Roy Hargrove, I think, is that trumpeter, and he has passed away in the last couple of years. But just wonderful work with the Roots, with D'Angelo. Oh, like it's exciting. It's an exciting time. John Kessler says we get paid to be curious about the music. And I love that sentiment. We get paid to be curious about the music. So yeah, it's my little weekly music appreciation moment. And I love it. I love it dearly.
So how much prep are you putting in for the show?
Well,
because you're not just going in and grabbing an album, if you will, off the rack and saying, "Oh, let's play track 3." I mean, what's involved getting ready for a radio show like that for you?
So one of the cool things about technology, Carol and I share a Spotify playlist that I am constantly, not every day, but 3 or 4 times a week, populating with new blues, new grooves, new songs, right? So, say my friend Sydney Nash turns me on to a trumpet player or a sax player. Okay, well, let's go through the catalog. Oh, this would be good for the groove yard. And then I just put that in the playlist.
Okay.
So partially it's that. It's having this constant musical conversation with Carol because she's programming the show. God bless her. Then usually midweek I will get oh gosh, it's I'm trying to think about what to call it because it's kind of a script. Yeah. About midweek I get the script of what the songs are, what the 3 hours worth of music, and then I sit usually with my phone, but I need to get better at doing it on the computer. Just sit and go ahead and research these songs. Now, who originally wrote the song? Great. How many other covers exist of this song? Great. Who is also playing on this track and what are they known for? Great. When did this album come out? Great. So there's all kinds of questions, to ask about every song. It is time consuming. It takes a little while, a couple of hours to do that research. But then I get in front of the microphone and I'm comfortable because I've spent those hours researching these bands. So I know what I'm talking about. Carol is also a stickler for helping me pronounce folks' names correctly. So putting the respect on other people's names, I think is very important. I spent about 20 years pronouncing Susan Tedeschi's name very wrong. And I am very grateful that I have colleagues like Carol to to get me together on how to pronounce that fabulous woman's name.
She's pretty amazing, isn't she?
Oh, yes.
When you're not doing music, so that 30 minutes a week, it sounds like music is your entire life. But no, in all seriousness, when you're not doing music, what else do you do? What else is going on in Tacoma that you're involved with? Okay.
So I get to talk about some of my favorite charities because I really believe in community engagement, because I love to tell this to kids when I work with kids, all of our favorite rap musicians come out of communities. And for a lot of them, you can say, okay, well, where's Snoop Dogg from? Long Beach is the place. Like, it's in the lyrics, right? So artists, really, a lot of them survive on community engagement and community support. So if the community is going to support me, I have to support the community, So I've done some work with School of the Arts Tacoma. I worked with some of their choral classes and songwriting classes, it feels good. It's nice. I went and talked to the kids at SAMI. That's the School of Math and Technology. I talked to that grouping of kids about how suicide has affected my family and really suicide prevention, and talking about mental health care and how to recognize the signs in your friends, how to recognize the signs in yourself, and what to do when you have those feelings. That's a big, scary topic for a lot of people, but not talking about things doesn't make them go away. Talking about things, bringing things into the light, as James Baldwin tells us, nothing can be overcome until it is faced. So that's great. I love to do that. Love to work with Feed 253. Now, Feed 253 is a company that's really strives to feed our unhoused neighbors. Started by this wonderful woman who just had a baby with her husband, Heidi Stormer. I met her when I was 15 years old. We were both playing music at the Shaka Bra. My goodness, for that open mic.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yes, they used to have an open mic hosted by Christian Doyle, who is now working down in Olympia with Zombie Orpheus Entertainment. Very cool, very cool. Okay. Theater and D&D personality. So just that was such a rad time to be in Tacoma. I went to that open mic religiously for years. But yeah, Heidi Stormer, she started Feed 253. It started with her Geo Metro and 5 turkeys that she bought with her own money to take to Tacoma Rescue Mission. And last year at the 10-year gala, which the Hidogs played, they made 30 grand in a night. They take care of people. They've started doing once a month, or they did before the shutdown, once a month meals, community meals at the YMCA. So just, they're an incredible group of people. I love to be around them. I also work for another job of mine is working with Yes Youth Equity Stewardship. They are a national company. And what they do is they use music and poetry to talk to kids about equity. They talk to kids about how it is for them, what their feelings are about being in this world, what they feel about being an American, what they feel about being a student. It's also multi-generational. We love to bring teachers into the conversation. We love to bring elders into the conversation so that we're really having community conversations, but centering the future, our children. So I did some of that work before the shutdown with the Auburn School District, working specifically with 4th and 5th graders. The Auburn School District, they rolled out this program and they let the Yes company have every one of their 4th and 5th graders. So just incredible to bring myself and my experience to an elementary school, because I want these kids to understand that they are important and they are worth me. And one of the coolest things that happened to me in Washington, I was over in Yakima. I was working with Cody Beebe. This was right before I got pulled into some of the Yes work, but I was doing school shows with Cody Beebe and talking to kids about making good choices and making sure that they surround themselves with friends who want the best for them. And if they can't find that person that wants the best for them, they need to be that person that wants the best for them. And so the show is over. And, this was the days before the shutdown. So there's a bunch of children running around touching my body and it's creepy. And, it's a sea of mostly Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, however you say this, children, a smattering of white children, and one Black child. And I always get emotional about this, always, because it was just such a big deal. And I remember coming in this house and telling my mother about it. So I'm in Eastern Washington. I'm at the show. I'm singing. I'm working with Cody Beebe. And the show's over and the children are running around. And the one Black girl in the audience, she found me and ran right up to me and hugged me, like hugged my belly. And I'm looking down at this child and she's looking up at me and she says, "You have hair like mine." And I like #representation matters. Oh my God. Oh my God. What a tender moment. Like, just here I am being the person I really needed to see when I was a child. And here is the future looking right at me saying, you are somebody I needed to see today. Just absolutely. It's wild. But also working with kids and working in the community, like, reminds me of just that, of people that need to see me, that need to see my work, that need to see me show up in the world, that need to see me saying, these are my boundaries. This is how I love, and you're welcome to this love. So yeah, when I'm not doing music, I am trying to support people that feed the community, trying to support the future, because I really think that, like, look, it's in the song. If it ain't no hope for the youth, it ain't no hope for the future. Like, I believe the truth is in rock and roll. I really do. And I think that's a Tupac line. God bless it. But yeah, I'm heavily heavily into the community. I also work with Rain City Rock Camp for girls, um, and also Ladies Rock Camp. I've been working with them for years and years and years. Very supportive community, grassroots group put together by the same people that have been running it for over 10 years. They're part of there's a global grouping of people that do rock camp for women and girls and gender nonconforming people. One of the first years I worked with them, we opened the day with a video chat with the people that were doing girls rock camp in Brooklyn. And so the girls in Brooklyn sang their song to us, and then we sang our camp song to them. And it was like, I always wanted stuff like that in classrooms. I think it's so important for the youth to understand, here you are and you live in the world, but there are other people out there doing cool stuff just like you, and you need to meet them, you know? So yeah, I that's what I do when I'm not working with kids, when I'm not doing music, when I'm not like sitting in my house playing guitar and writing. Ooh, child, I love Batman cartoons. I have been on a kick lately, getting into the HBO Max put out the 1992 Batman cartoon series, and that's the one I grew up watching. And that's the only voice of the Joker that I really, really like, if I'm honest. And so yeah, a little bit of going back through my nerdy history. God bless it. I also am a big fan of those Marvel movies, man. I've seen every single one of them, and I'm also into watching WandaVision right now. It's very interesting to me. I love watching characters that we as audience members can build relationships with. So when wild things happen to them, we feel feelings about it, you know. I also big fan of Watchmen as a series.
I have not watched that. It looked intriguing, but I didn't watch it.
Good.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I just did a rewatch. I watched it. And then also Lovecraft Country. Ooh, I don't even like scary movies. And I watched all of that. I watched all telling stories, especially allowing right now the Black community in particular to tell stories about our past that we haven't been able to tell before. So especially in Watchmen, but also a little bit in Lovecraft Country, they talk a little bit about the Tulsa massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I really encourage everybody to do some reading about that. It's one of the only times that America has bombed America. Yes, deep and sordid history of the violence wrought upon Black Americans just trying to mind their business. Also, I'm a big fan of podcasts. I follow a lot of podcasts. My favorites are The Nod, The Read. I am obsessed with Robert Evans, who is a journalist. He's been in Syria and Afghanistan and such, but also was on the ground in Portland during the uprisings over this last summer. His show is called Behind the Bastards. It's about the worst people in history. He did a series, a 6-part called Behind the Police, where he talks about how we got to our current militarized police state and the particular police unions involved in that. And then he also talks about Behind the Insurrection is the new series, where he talks about the various insurrections in history and how we might better equip ourselves to deal with the recent insurrection we had on January 6th. I'm a big fan of study. Study prevents me from worrying, right? So I can worry about what has happened, or I can study the past and see what the best choices would be, right? So find the right information so that you can make all the right choices.
That's outstanding. Wow. Okay. So this has been awesome.
Radical. Agreed.
I really am grateful for your time. But before we go, why don't you take a moment and tell people where they can find you online.
Yeah. So basically, I'm Stephanie Ann Johnson on most of my socials. Stephanie, STEPHANIE space Ann ANNE, and Johnson, how everybody spell that, JOHNSON. Okay, all one word, lowercase. You can find me there on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but please don't follow me on Twitter. I don't be saying nothing on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Stephanie Ann Johnson, ANNE. I post a lot about Black history during Black History Month because it is my pleasure, my joy to do so. So if you choose to follow me, just know that there's going to be a lot about that. Unapologetically pro-Black in the house. You can also find me on Patreon. Search Stephanie Ann Johnson, and with an E, don't forget it. There are 3 different levels of sponsorship. At the highest level, you're going to get videos that nobody else is going to see. You're going to get vocal tracks that nobody else is going to see. You're going to get to hear me talk about the songwriting process for so many of these songs. And hear me talk a little bit more about my life. Also, some of my poetry will be coming out here soon as well, trying to find some visual artists to work with so that we can make broadsides and such things. So yes, find me on the Facebook, Stephanie Ann Johnson. Find me on the Instagram, Stephanie Ann Johnson. Please support me on the Patreon, Stephanie Ann Johnson. If you choose to buy my music, please do so from bandcamp.com. And again, there, Stephanie Ann Johnson. I'm
noticing a trend.
Listen, it is my government name, and I choose to be an artist in the world with my government name because Stephanie is the name that my mom chose for me, and I love my mom, and I really do think that she sees me and has chosen to see me as I am for the length of our relationship, which I'm very grateful for. Not everybody has that relationship with their mother. And then the second thing, Anne, is my grandmother's sister, Aunt Anne. And so I love those 2 names together. They make so much sense to me. They speak about my past and about people who love me. So
that's wonderful.
Yes.
We're going to make it easy for people. We'll put the links in the show notes so people can click on a link to find you. We'll put all those there.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll let you have the last word. You can take it away.
The last one, I'm going to just say, I have so much gratitude to you for having me on today. I have gratitude for all of the listeners. I'm choosing to bless my body right now and bless your body and the body of your affairs, the work that you do. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that your life shows you something unbelievably beautiful this day. Go forth and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.